As Gregor Zamza awoke one morning from a troubled dream, he found himself transformed in his bed into a monstrous insect.
Imagine yourself as a regular man who has a job that pays well enough to support your family. Thus, you have a caring wife as well as two loving children who smiles every time they see you. Everything is great. Until you get into an accident one day that paralyzes you for life. A certain change that affects everyone around you. What do you think will happen after that?
Franz Kafka
Gathered
their family to bury their only son, Franz.
grotesque and heartless characters, figures of fun or figures of horror,
Quality to Kafka, a certain dark truth.
which is divided into segments.
Kafka writing was really an attempt to understand what it meant to be human.
The passion of the scientist and the precision of the artist. So to Franz Kafka and the Metamorphosis, where a poor fellow is turned into a beetle. So what?
If you still don't understand, yes, we're talking about Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, one of the most critically acclaimed classical literature of all times. Franz Kafka was born on 3rd July 1883 in Prague, Czechoslovakia. Cursed by the different perspectives of life, his own philosophy, Kafka started writing the Metamorphosis in 1912 and was later published in 1950. The Metamorphosis is a story of a young individual named as Gregor Samsa. He's a salesperson who does not like his job very much, but has to do it because he's the only person who is providing for his family, which includes his old parents and a 16-year-old sister. One day, Gregor wakes up in his bed and realizes that he has changed into what Kafka calls a monstrous vermin. This starts a story of what we call as metamorphosis of not only Gregor but everyone around him. This whole book contains 3 parts, with every part having a sequence in which the first point starts with the initial storyline. It rises up to the main climax of the story and then falls back to the dark truth that is synonymous in every single part.
He is alone. He has already been changed into a beetle. But his human impression still mingles with his new insect instinct.
Now, what is this dark truth? There are many inferences when literary scholars have tried to infer their own interpretations of the Metamorphosis. This includes many scholars such as Charles Nider and Max Brod. The most accepted interpretation, of what we call as the most popular interpretation, is that of Vladimir Nabokov. Now, there are many different characters which Kafka put as a symbolic reasoning to suggest what type of situation Gregor was in. But when Nabokov interpreted this, he suggested that Gregor was a victim of one of those alien nations that everyone faces in this world.
Franz Kafka's private nightmare was that the central human character belongs to the same private fantastic world as the inhuman characters around him. But pathetically and tragically, he attempts to struggle out of that world into the world of humans.
Nabokov suggested that Gregor was a parasite from the outside and a human in the inside, suggesting from the story in which Gregor was, even though an insect, he had a human conscience. Nabokov suggested that Kafka wanted to say how incapability of Gregor made the family members have a metamorphosis into parasites who leached on their post and then leave it for good. Although his sister was the one who took care of him, cleaned his room, and gave him some food. But as it goes, that also changes at the end of the story. Apart from this book being a philosophical tragedy, one has to see the literary excellence of Kafka, as you understand when Gregor points out the alienation that he sees among his members of family. He starts to see them as not family but as individuals, as he understands how these people who were once his own have become very strange and very distant. The ideological perspective of Kafka is very uncanny, but also intriguing at the same time. Now, Kafka's life has so much variation in it that it may require another video. But for now, we have to consider the fact that Kafka was one of a kind individual who didn't actually think like any other normal person. He wrote many books, but some, such as The Metamorphosis and The Trial, were the only one that he considered in high notes. So after this whole description of the Metamorphosis, would you like to read it? If yes, then do come back and answer the question that I asked you before this video started. Thank you for watching.